My name is Natalie Harper. I'm 36 years old, and the moment I realized my mother in law was not just disrespecting me, but actively trying to push me out of my own marriage, happened on our fifth anniversary in the middle of dinner when she walked into a restaurant wearing my wedding dress. Not a copy, not something that looked similar, my actual dress, the one I had paid to preserve after our wedding and stored in a locked cedar wardrobe in our guest room. People didn't freeze like in movies. They just stared. A few turned in their seats. One waitress stopped talking mid-sentence, and then I looked at my husband. He didn't look shocked. He looked sick, like he'd spent the entire evening hoping his mother wouldn't go through with something he was too weak to stop. And that was the second my stomach dropped, because the dress was one thing, but the look on his face told me this had been building for a long time. And by the end of that dinner, I wasn't thinking about making a scene. I was thinking about what I needed to put in writing before his mother cost me more than a ruined anniversary. Our anniversary dinner was supposed to be simple. Daniel had booked a quiet Italian place about 40 minutes outside Baltimore because he said he wanted something low-key after a hard month at work. Just us, his younger sister, Paige, and her husband, and his mom, Linda. I almost said no when he told me Linda was coming because she and I had been strained for over a year, but Daniel asked in that tired, careful way he used when he wanted peace more than honesty, so I agreed. Even getting ready felt off. He kept checking his phone and locking it too fast when I walked past. At one point, I asked if everything was okay, and he said, "Yeah, mom's just being mom," which didn't answer anything. At the restaurant, he kept looking at the entrance every time the door opened. Paige noticed, too. She finally leaned over and muttered, "If she's doing drama tonight, I'm leaving." And Daniel didn't laugh. That was my first real warning. 20 minutes into dinner, Linda still wasn't there. Bread had come, drinks had come, and the waiter had already asked twice if we wanted to order without her. Then the front door opened, and I heard Paige inhale sharply before I even turned around. Linda was standing near the hostess stand in ivory lace, fitted sleeves, and a soft satin skirt that I knew before my brain let me know it. There are some things your body recognizes before your mind catches up. The neckline, the hand-beaded waist, the tiny repaired snag near the hem from our wedding photos in the garden. It was my dress, my preserved wedding dress. She smiled when she saw us, like she expected applause, and walked straight toward the table holding her purse at her elbow like she was arriving at a reception. A couple at the next table looked confused. One older woman frowned. Nobody clapped, nobody complimented her. It wasn't admiration in the room, it was discomfort. "Linda," Paige said under her breath, sounding horrified. I looked at Daniel, and he had gone pale in a way that told me he hadn't known exactly what she planned, but he had known enough to be afraid of it. Linda reached the table and said, "Well, if everyone's going to stare, I'd rather it be family." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "That is my dress." She gave me a soft shrug. "I know you kept it packed away in the wardrobe upstairs. Such a shame." Upstairs? Not in our bedroom closet? Not somewhere vague? The cedar wardrobe in the guest room, the one Daniel had asked me to move the dress into 6 months earlier because he said the temperature stayed more stable. The same guest room Linda had helped organize 3 weeks before while I was at work. And suddenly, every small detail I had ignored started clicking into place. Her asking if the wardrobe key still stuck. Her comment that it was sad for a beautiful dress to die in storage. Daniel saying mom was just helping when I got annoyed she'd gone through drawers. At the table, I said calmly, "How did you get into it?" Linda sat down before answering, like she planned to stay. "Daniel gave me the house key that week, remember? He asked me to wait for the plumber. The wardrobe key was in the desk tray. You really should put important things somewhere safer." She said it like a lesson, not a violation. I looked at Daniel, and for a second I couldn't tell which hurt more, that she wore the dress or that he made it possible. "I didn't know she would do this," he said quietly, and that told me he knew enough to imagine it. He had seen the runway and hoped the plane wouldn't land. That was Daniel's specialty, not cruelty, just avoidance so chronic it became betrayal. I should have left right then, but there is a strange stillness that hits when someone finally does the thing you feared they were capable of. You stop arguing with reality and start studying it. So I sat back down. My hands were cold. Linda adjusted my sleeve and asked for wine. Paige looked like she wanted to disappear. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Linda leaned back and smiled. I know this upset you, but I spent years picturing Daniel's wedding. Then it happened and it felt over before I could be part of it. You were part of it, I said. You were at the wedding. That's not the same as having a place in it, she replied. And that was the first honest thing she said. This wasn't about attention, it was about her never accepting that Daniel built a life where she wasn't the center. She'd always done smaller versions of this, answering questions for him, buying duplicate keys, reorganizing our kitchen, introducing me as the girl who benefits from him. I had let it all go because each thing sounded petty when spoken aloud. That's how people like Linda survive, in the space between rude and deniable. But sitting there in my wedding dress, she pushed past deniable. Paige quietly said, "Mom, you need to go change." Linda didn't look at her. "I didn't think you'd be this territorial," she said. "It's not like I took your husband." Daniel finally spoke. "Mom, stop." Linda turned injured. "I'm your mother. I borrowed a dress. Natalie is acting like I committed a crime." And Daniel did what he always did. "Nat, can we just not do this here?" As if I was the problem. Something inside me went quiet. Not rage, not heartbreak, assessment. Because once you realize your marriage is built around your tolerance, everything looks like paperwork. I stood up, took my purse, and went outside. The air smelled like rain. I called my attorney and asked for the first available appointment to update my estate documents, my healthcare proxy, my power of attorney, and access permissions. Because women like Linda only get as far as the weakest person allows. And in my marriage, that weak point was Daniel. When I walked back in, Linda wasn't smiling as broadly. I sat down and said, "After dinner, your mother gives me the dress, the house key, and every copy. Tomorrow, we change the locks." Linda laughed. Daniel didn't. He knew from my voice I was already somewhere he couldn't smooth over. Linda took the dress off in the restroom and came back wearing navy, which made it feel more premeditated. She handed me the garment bag in the parking lot. Daniel drove home in silence. The next morning, I met my attorney. I didn't do anything dramatic. I did the boring, devastating adult version. The house I inherited was retitled into a trust, my accounts separated, my healthcare proxy changed, a post-nuptial drafted. Daniel came to the second meeting. My attorney asked him directly, "Did you give your mother access without consent?" He said yes. Has she repeatedly inserted herself into marital decisions? Yes again. I watched his face as she described his pattern: failure to maintain boundaries, unauthorized access, vulnerability exposure. That was when he finally looked ashamed. Linda called furious. He put her on speaker. "Mom, this is not about a dress. You used my key. You upset my wife. You're not coming over unless Natalie invites you. You're not getting a key. You don't talk about her like she's the problem." Linda went quiet, then said, "You'd choose her over your own mother?" And Daniel finally answered correctly, "I'm choosing my marriage over the mess you created." She hung up. 2 weeks later, a box arrived. Inside was my dress, professionally cleaned, a reimbursement check, and a note. I misjudged what was mine to touch. Not an apology, but closer than before. Daniel and I started counseling because one strong sentence doesn't undo years. Trust returns slowly, through repetition, inconvenience, and proof. Daniel changed passwords, gave me full visibility, stopped treating peace as something purchased with my discomfort. Sometimes I still think about the night the restaurant door opened and I saw another woman wearing the most personal thing I owned. But what stays with me now isn't the dress. It's the moment I looked at my husband and understood the real threat to my marriage was never just Linda's entitlement. It was Daniel's silence. And once that silence finally broke, everyone's role in the story became impossible to pretend away.